So as the title of this video is letting you know, I want to tell you about the time I quit my full-time job to pursue my art dreams and how I ended up failing. And while I do that, I'm going to be showing you my process for this gouache portrait, which is actually me. It's my profile picture I use for my social media. And I'm really excited because this portrait was inspired by the sponsors of this video, Ana Luisa, who sent me this lovely jewellery, and these earrings reminded me so much of paint, and specifically my monochromatic portraits that I do in blue. And then when they told me about their self-love message for Valentine's Day, it really inspired me to do a self-portrait for the first time ever. And look how pretty they are. I feel like a princess. I love this heart pendant necklace and these matching earrings. This is so my style and so me, and you can really feel the quality in your hands when you have these pieces. And I also love this initial necklace. I've wanted one for a while. So yeah, I just adore these pieces. I love that it doesn't tarnish, which is my ultimate pet peeve when jewellery tarnishes. Like, I really hate when cheaper gold jewellery tarnishes, but I don't have the budget for more expensive gold jewellery. So I feel like Ana Luisa is such a great value for the price, and the quality you get is really unmatched. I have a link below and a discount code, so please do definitely check them out through my link. It helps me so much as I want to keep making cool art for cool brands like Ana Luisa, so please check them out. And thank you, Ana Luisa, for sponsoring, and all of you for watching as well. You really have no idea how much of your support and comments and likes mean to me. So let me tell you how I essentially followed the trend post-pandemic. Do you remember all the I quit my job videos on YouTube? Well, I did the same. I also quit my job and I decided to pursue a dream of making a living as an artist. And now, 2 years later, after making that move, I'd like to tell you the story about how I failed. But through the failure, I actually gained so much, and I hate to sound really cliche and corny, but it was the best thing I could have done for myself, even though my initial plan didn't work out. So to give you a bit of context, I had a very different career path for all of my 20s. I was not a practicing artist and my career was not in art at all. I very much connected with art as a hobby again in my late 20s, and by that I mean doing it very sporadically. I actually started drawing again and then doing digital art and exploring it very slowly. During the pandemic, I began to have a lot more time to explore because I was working from home fully, and so I had time and energy after work to do art, and that's when I started painting in 2021. And throughout the year, I really realized I needed to pursue art in some kind of way. I had always wanted to all my life, but I had left it so early on in school. I actually made a video about failing art in high school, actually. I'll link it on the screen. And I didn't really ever get a chance to fully pursue it. So I had a very all or nothing moment, and I'll go into why I made such a brash decision, but I decided to quit my job at the end of 2021 and take what I call a sabbatical year. And the goal was for me to really be able to explore my creativity and try to forge my career as an artist. So to go into context, I am, and I was at this point when I quit my job, in my early 30s. And I had been working for over a decade to save up money, and I wasn't saving for something specific, but most of my friends at this point were using their savings to put deposits down on houses and start families, but this is not what I wanted to do. And so basically I calculated that I would use all my savings to live for approximately 2 years without working at all. And this wasn't my plan, as I did want to gain some income through my art eventually, but I was calculating that if I had nothing coming in, my savings would last me about 2 years. So as I said, I was counting on making some sort of gradual income with my art, and this is the wild part because looking back on it, I had no real plan. I wasn't making much of an income part-time with my art at this point. Like, I had a Redbubble shop that was making about $100 to $150 per month, and I was part of the Instagram Reels bonus program, which was giving me a very varied income, but I hadn't fully seen what kind of money I could make from art. And also at this point, I hadn't even developed any type of artistic style or anything. I was very much at a preliminary stage, which is why I want to emphasize that my decision to quit my job was very much for me to have the opportunity to explore rather than quitting because I had a fully formed plan. Like when people quit their job because their side thing is starting to make them a real income. I was not at that point. at all, not even close. Anyway, so back to the financial piece. So I had calculated I had enough to pay my rent and expenses for 2 years. And it's important to mention that I was living in a relatively cheap apartment. It was an anomaly because the area wasn't super cheap, but I guess we had a really nice landlord that never raised the rent in 5 years and was a very nice man. Like when the pandemic first hit and my partner was cut hours on his job, he actually reduced our rent, which is wild, but I guess there are good people in the world. So the rent was cheap and I was living with my partner. So this is another huge safety net for me, that I wasn't living alone, and therefore I had the security that I would always have a home. Even though I was still paying my part in everything, I knew in the worst case scenario that I would not end up without a place to live, which is obviously a huge privilege and safety net that allowed me to take this risk. So I definitely don't want to minimize that. Secondly, I also think a big impulse to making this decision was that I had gone through some difficult health things leading up to the sabbatical year and had completely gained my health back and was feeling like spiritually I had a new lease on life, and I can only describe myself as feeling strong and not wanting to waste another moment being unhappy in my job, and I really wanted to savor feeling healthy again. So this is a contributing factor to maybe the hastiness I had in making this move. Like I wasn't in the planning phase of this for years. I actually decided maybe around the end of 2020 that I would do this and made the leap at the end of 2021. So maybe like a year of thinking about doing this. Okay, so let's talk about the sabbatical period, which ended up being a total of 1 year and 8 months. It was the best thing I did. Even though I did not accomplish my goal of making a living from my art, it gave me so much, and I'm going to tell you what and why. I started very slowly. I wanted to just make art and see how to make money from it so I could live as a creative. I began doing a bit of commission work here and there, and I mainly got that from word of mouth, people that knew me. I began posting a lot more on Instagram and just doing art a lot more, which I was loving. I eventually started my Etsy shop. That's a whole adventure in and of itself that I feel like looking back I also failed at. I can go into that in another video. I started my YouTube channel, and that I did like 8 months into the sabbatical period, so not even at the beginning. And I was really lucky because I got monetized in a few months, which really helped because through there I was able to get sponsorships and AdSense payments. And through my online presence, I began to get a bit more noticed by brands, so I was able to do some brand work. And let me tell you, I did not have hundreds of thousands of followers, and I still don't. I'm very much a small creator on these platforms, and I was even smaller during that first year where I quit my job. But I was really enjoying this discovery period and growth period. Income was trickling in, but it was not a livable income, and it varied so much from month to month. And there were a lot of inconsistencies income-wise depending on what opportunities I was getting access to, but I was definitely not making enough consistently to just live off that income. So I was eating through my savings. And looking back on this sabbatical period, which ended up being 1 year and 8 months, it ended around September of last year in 2023. I am in awe at how ballsy I was, because let me tell you, I depleted almost the entirety of my savings. Basically, I went down to very close to zero, and I can't lie and say I wasn't stressed. I was stressed, but I can't minimize the backup of living with a partner and therefore knowing that I wasn't going to be in a super risky situation of not having a place to live. Now, obviously, I didn't want it to get at that point because my partner was making enough to live, but it would have been miserable if he had to fully support us both on his income. So I wasn't going to let that happen. However, I had no plan. And so one day I woke up and I realized I needed to start working again. In all of this, I realized that this period where I had invested in my creativity, because that's essentially how I see it. Some people buy houses, some people buy cars, some people have kids, and they use their savings and income for that, and no one bats an eyelid because it's the normal societal thing to do, to go down those paths, right? And that's fine. And I invested my savings in having a short period of creating and exploring my creativity and trying to build a career as an artist. So in that sense, this investment changed my life, and here is how. So I arrived at this point where I needed to start working for a consistent paycheck again. But it was basically like a light bulb moment of thinking, okay, I need to work again, but I'm gonna search in a sphere that's creative, in an area that's more creative. And I know it sounds really simple, but in my mind, those two things had never married, like working and creativity. For me, like work had been kind of miserable before. Like I was doing something that I didn't love. So now thinking, okay, what if I find something that's in a creative field, was like a very eye-opening thing. And I had developed some credentials, right? Some backing to now look for a job and show that I was a creative person, because I had my YouTube, I had some videos that I could showcase some skills, I had my Instagram, I built a website, I made a portfolio. So I began to job search with this at the forefront. And I was lucky that I landed a job initially in social media, and then I actually transitioned in a very short space of time to another job that was even more of a better fit because it involved even more creativity, which really was only possible because I gave myself this sabbatical period to develop certain skills. So right now I'm at a point where I've been working full time for about 4-ish months, but I still want to pursue my art as part of my career. But right now it has to be part time because I need this full time job. And luckily, this job isn't in a direct opposition to my art because it's creative and I love it. So it's a very different situation to where I was before I quit my previous job and was exploring art on the side. I'm still very far from where I want to be with regards to my actual art practice and the art I produce. And I have lots of hopes and dreams for the direction I want to take my art in. But my goal for this year is to at least be consistent with my art and post videos regularly to YouTube, because I love posting videos about the art process so much. I still want to grow as an artist, but it may be slower right now. And there are so many part-time artists that I found through social media that inspire me so much because they seem to balance full-time work and art so well. So obviously you can grow as an artist along doing a full-time job or doing it part-time. I'm under no pretense that you need to quit everything to become a full-time artist and grow, but I will say that this investment of my resources in being able to take this sabbatical year was 100% worth it, because it accelerated a process that I needed to undergo in order to establish myself as someone who considers themselves an artist now. I underwent a process of discovery that I think maybe people that go and study art at uni are able to do, as they take some years to only dedicate themselves to art. And I'm not saying that I'm close to where I want to be with my art. I'm still on the journey. I think, the journey lasts forever, but I do feel satisfied that I underwent this process because it kickstarted something in me that no one can take away from me. And that's that I consider myself an artist now, whereas before I didn't. And again, not because I was able to do it full time for a period, but because I underwent a process which allowed me to see myself and respect myself as that and see the value in my art. Now, obviously, this did come at a cost for me. It came at the cost of depleting my savings, having a gap in my career that potentially could mean it was difficult for me to start work again, even though that wasn't the case. In the moment, I didn't know that. And there's definitely a risk involved in quitting a job and then being without a job for a while and then having to explain that to future employers. And so there was risk in this. Something else I would feel often too was that in that moment, I felt like I was setting myself back from everyone in my life stage at that time. Like at that age, early 30s, you have this notion of where you need to be in life because of society, like people having families and buying houses and cars and having savings and all that societal stuff. And I was really doing the opposite. I often felt like I was a teenager taking a gap year before going to uni, but I was actually in my early 30s surrounded by people having baby showers and announcing their weddings. I know it's not that deep, but it did affect me in the moment because I thought, oh, am I doing the right thing? I also sometimes had the underlying feeling of stress. It wasn't unmanageable, but I did sometimes get hit by a feeling of like, oh no, like I should be doing much more. Why didn't I plan this more? Should I be doing things this way or another way? I was a bit embarrassed to say what I was doing because I felt people would judge me for it. I felt sometimes that I wasn't creating enough art to be like, oh, I'm doing this full time, but why am I not producing more and kind of going faster with this whole process? I also just think this is part of living in a capitalist society. You feel like if you're not productive in the traditional sense, you feel panicked all the time. So I think it's also a societal thing. Now, please don't get me wrong, because I know I'm saying this on the internet, and I feel like people are like, oh, these are non-problems. Yes, 100%, everything's relative. I'm talking about this specific situation. These aren't super deep problems. I'm just kind of giving a little bit of what I felt in the moment to maybe show you the negative sides of doing this. And they could be different for everyone. Everyone has different life situations and different ways of approaching things, and maybe these would be non-problems to anyone else. But I'm giving my experience of them, and maybe it will help you a little bit if you are thinking about doing something similar. The last kind of negative thing I'll touch on is that, specific to my situation, I didn't go into this with a plan. And I think that if anyone were to do this, or if I were to do this again, I would definitely have a plan. I really just kind of stumbled upon things and grew kind of organically in what I was doing. Like, I didn't start my YouTube channel until maybe the 8th or 9th month of me being on the sabbatical. My Etsy shop, I didn't do tons and tons of research like I should have. And I kind of just tested things as they went along instead of maybe having a bit more structure, which would have allowed me to maybe do things quicker, learn quicker, not make as many mistakes. I think that would have been the ideal. But anyway, here I am back at square one. I'm kidding. I'm worlds away from who I was 2 years ago, but on paper, I'm back at a regular full-time job, exploring my art on the side, just with a very different mindset and situation because of that period that I took. And it feels very vulnerable to talk about this on the internet, but hopefully it helps someone gain some sort of knowledge that may contribute to your plans or decisions that you may want to take, and also give you maybe a bit more insight into my trajectory with art and not feel alone if you are later in life trying to explore an art career. I'm about to turn 34 in a couple of months. I don't have many savings, I don't have a big art career, I'm still stumbling along, but I also know these are not deep problems at all. So don't think I'm complaining about this, please. Anyway, remember to check out my Ana Luisa link and the discount code. Thank you so much again to Ana Luisa for sponsoring this video, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.